Would you reject money for art that you have created? This is something that classically trained painter Kit French almost did. When I sat down and had a chat with Kit, he told me a story whereby he was completing a charcoal portrait, he handed it to the client, and they in turn handed him some money, to which his response was almost, "What are you giving me that for?" Because he had enjoyed the process of making that particular portrait so much. And I think this is a trap that a lot of us do fall into. This idea that if we do something creative with our hands, with our heart, and something that we enjoy, we struggle to charge for that. It's an experience that I've had. It's definitely an experience that Kit had. And today we're going to jump into why we have that experience and also maybe some good ways to get over it. I've also recently spoken to an oil painter, Emma Jacobs, and how she chooses to price her art, which seems quite simple and yet at the same time quite effective. So let's go back to the root of that problem that I mentioned at the start and flip it on its head. If you charge somebody for something that you hate doing, it feels kind of easy. And it's because you can equate what you're charging somebody with the amount of suffering you endured in order to get to that end result, whether that's art or anything else. It just feels so much easier to charge somebody for something when you've actually had to go through a really miserable experience, or at minimum, an experience that you don't particularly enjoy, not one that brings you actual happiness. So if you create art, you take photos, you design things, and you love that process, it really becomes hard because your brain starts thinking, how can I charge somebody hundreds or thousands of euros, dollars, etc. for something that I enjoyed doing? It's conflicting on internally to be able to push through that. You equate joy with zero financial value. You don't want to be a salesperson. You want to be an artist, and money doesn't feel like it can be part of that. So what you end up doing an awful lot of the time is something very, very dangerous, where you end up undervaluing yourself, which can have horrendous impacts down the line, or even worse, you do what I did, which is you start giving away some of that information, some of your knowledge, some of your skills for free because you kind of just are excited to do it and be in the room. So the incredibly stupid thing that I did was I have worked for many years in, let's say, sporting apparel, particularly with an expertise in a lot of things like performance socks. And when I first started doing that and I first was getting into the industry, I was working freelance with adjacent products. And when the opportunity to work on research and development for these performance socks came along, I was basically giving away all of my information, all of my knowledge, all of my thoughts completely for free. I was just excited to be involved and to be in the room. Huge companies were speaking with me, were approaching me, and I was delighted to work with them. And I was taking that and really hamstringing myself by simply not charging, because not only was I hurting my ability to make money right there and then, I was also hurting the possibility of me making money further down the line. How do you tell somebody that right now this is free, or previously if it was free, and then a year later, oh no, I want to charge you hundreds or thousands of euro for that information? You have to at least start with a base point. And part of the problem is because in that situation, I'm giving away knowledge that's sitting in my head, and I'm giving away time. I'm not physically creating a product like an artist might be, for example. So it almost feels easier. However, that conversation I had with Kit was really about the opposite of that. It was Kit talking about how his education is important to how he prices, how the information that he has is important. And that applies across the board. Your skill set, the time it took you to get that skill set, all of the information that you have, all of your experience, all these intangible elements, they're all important to your pricing, and you shouldn't give them away for free. This is why Kit, who studied at an art school in Florence, builds that into his pricing. He does build his education into his pricing, and rightfully so, because he has something that other people don't, and he has something that informs the end result that people are paying for. You've also got to understand that over time, you will have failed again and again and again. I know I have. Every single failed painting, failed photo, failed video, failed take, poor production is a piece of learning, and you need to build that into your pricing. That pricing needs to reflect every single failure that you've made, because all of those failures, probably more than successes, have led you to the point where you're now the informed premium creative that you are. Or alternatively, even if you are not at the very top of your game yet, you are a lot further along than when you started. And all of the mistakes, all of the failures have got you to that point. So really all I've spoken about so far is knowing your worth, right? We've not physically put a number on anything, and that's where there's a big discrepancy. It is one thing to know your worth and to know your worth internally, but it's another thing to put that number on a piece of paper and give it out to somebody. Now, this was again an issue that I had because I didn't really have any guidance. I didn't know where to start. This is something I'd undertaken on my own, and I didn't really have anybody to help me. However, reach out to people in your space and see if they can give you advice. I spoke to Emma Jacobs, who I mentioned earlier, who is an oil painter, and she was given a formula to start with, whereby she took the size of the canvas and used that to inform the price that she would charge. And that's something that she says she still uses to this day. This formula of size gives you a rough price. But that's not where she stops, and rightfully so. Your skills, your experience, your exposure, your demand all grow over time, so therefore your prices should raise accordingly. And Emma simply takes an approach of supply and demand, trial and error. You raise your prices, and if nobody's buying, you might need to come back down again. If your prices are too low, you might be selling too much. That is a thing. You can sell too much. You can be too easy. If, for example, I am pitching to somebody or somebody's pitching to me and I send them a price and they accept immediately, I've probably underpriced myself. If there's a bit of negotiation, then we might be getting somewhere. So it is that case of ensuring that you are priced correctly, and you can do that by just gauging the market. And that's what Emma does. She has her base formula and she gauges the market, and in my opinion is priced incredibly well and incredibly accurately as a result. Now that sounds very cold and very market driven, and that's against a lot of what we do as creatives, no matter what your creative field is. Illustrators, artists, designers, tattoo artists, photographers, whatever it is, it has passion and it has heart and it's very warm. And to just simply go down a route of cold, hard numbers feels unnatural. But it does seem to work for pretty much everybody that I've spoken to. So, good reference points here are Kit, knowing that his time has value and weight, and everything he holds inside has value and weight. And Emma using the market and a more cold system to ensure that she's not underpricing and avoiding everything I did by giving away your skills, your experience for free. I think it's important to realize and remember that pricing and charging for your work isn't some kind of moral judgment on your character. It's not something that takes away from your creativity. It's what allows you to continue to be creative and, in actual fact, to be better at your craft. And I know that this is a tough area for an awful lot of artists, awful lot of creatives, and I myself still struggle with it from time to time. But do remember your value, and do remember that charging isn't wrong at all. If you do want to see my conversation with Kit French or my conversation with Emma Jacobs, then please do click on the videos that I will leave on screen right now.